From Evoke Media, I'm Sabrina Mirage Naeem. With me is Cassia Binkowski, and this is Breaking Glass, a series of conversations with women around the world who are shattering glass ceilings and challenging social norms. They are audacious, gutsy, and their stories are echoed across borders and generations in a rallying cry that is changing the narrative for women everywhere. Tina Clark is one of the most well-respected women in the music industry and widely regarded as a force in helping to move the industry more towards gender equity. But her story begins in rural Mississippi with a conservative family who didn't always support her career aspirations, musical ambitions, or lifestyle. Tina knew she had no choice but to follow the music, and at times had to force her way beyond gender barriers and concrete ceilings to achieve the great heights that have now allowed others to follow in her footsteps. We're talking with Tina about passion, ambition, sexuality, familial pressures, and ending the violence against women.
Sabrina, as you point out, we touch on so many topics in this journey with Tina. We almost don't know where to begin. But her career and life story intertwine beautifully to form this tapestry that drew us in almost immediately. Tina is so confident in her choices, even when often faced with discouragement from the people who love her most. Today, she's an industry executive, a writer, a producer, an author, an activist. The list goes on and on. We think you'll really enjoy hearing the story about a woman at the top of the industry. Take a listen.
Tina, thank you so much for joining us from Atlanta today. We're very excited to have you.
Well, I am happy to be here.
So I was racking my brain as to where to start because you've had such a versatile and multifaceted career and life, and there's so much that we could touch on. But, we need to begin at the very beginning, which is you are from originally Mississippi. And you have since kind of blossomed into so many other things from Mississippi, your roots. You're a drummer, a sound engineer, and more or less you were discovered by Stevie Wonder. And today you're the founder and CEO of DMI Music. And we'll talk more about that. But as a woman at the top of the industry, it's, that scratches the surface of what we want to touch on today. So first, what was it like for you growing up in rural South? More specifically, what were the gender expectations that were put on you as a young girl?
I don't even think it was evolved enough to say there were expectations. It was just no conversation, a non-starter. And I didn't even know, when I was very young. I just knew that I was really different. And I feel like that the expectations were to be exactly like my older sisters. I had 3 older sisters, much older than me. They're all now in their, late 70s. And I grew up as basically an only child because they were gone and in college or either getting married or whatever by the time I was 6 years old. So I guess yes, I guess. Okay. To be specific, I'm sure that my parents wanted me just to be exactly like all my sisters. Debutantes, majorette, drum major, marry the perfect guy, join the country club, and have 2.3 children. And, but there was never any questioning or conversation around even if that were not something that I would want, or if I was free to choose for myself.
When did you start to recognize that you felt different than them? When did you start to recognize that was not going to be your path in life?
When I was 4.
What happened when you were 4?
I was always a tomboy, even from, probably day one, but I was sitting on the floor playing with my Lincoln logs and building some kind of fort or something. And my sister, who was a majorette, walked in. She was in high school, and she walked in with her best friend, and they were both majorettes. And her best friend had on a green sequined leotard and white tassel boots. And I just remember I was looking down at my Lincoln Logs, and all of a sudden I looked up and like the gates opened and the heavens sang. And it was, oh my God, they just got it. I thought, I don't want to be a majorette. I want to marry one.
What did it look like to navigate that growing up? I mean, realizing from the age of 4, balancing those expectations, growing up as more or less an only child, what did that look like? What did your coping mechanisms look like? How did you navigate that? How did your parents respond?
It was very, very, very keep it deep down inside in a locked box, and just feel that I was like a Martian, but there were no other Martians that I knew. And so therefore I had to tuck it away. I had to keep tucking it away. And that one day maybe there would be a miracle, but this is what life was, and there was no alternative. And I would take it as long as I could. And then I would maybe not be able to take it anymore. And so, I did what I was supposed to do. I dated guys all through high school. I dated guys in college. I was always pinned or dropped or going steady. So I just lived the facade,
So I just want to set the stage for a minute. You grew up, yes, in the rural South, but you also you grew up in incredible financial privilege. Your father was one of the wealthiest men in town. You talk about this image of the country clubs, the beauty pageants, the majorettes, I have such a clear picture in my mind of what that was like. And yet, from such an early age, you knew that something was very different about you from your 3 older sisters, maybe from a lot of the other people who surrounded you in your community. There was some familial turmoil. There was infidelity. There was alcoholism. Your mother eventually walked out on the family when you were just 10 years old. And you talk about how you were raised in large part by your nanny. All of this kind of shaped who you eventually became. You wanted to be a drummer. Girls were not allowed to play the drums.
Correct.
Eventually you realize you wanted to date women.
Right.
That is unheard of, not even up for consideration.
Correct.
When was that turning point in your life where you came from was no longer where you're going?
There was nothing in me that made that okay. There was nothing in me that made me go with the status quo, that it was just like, that this doesn't work, and I will, whatever it takes, I will not be a part of this and stand by and accept it. It's like the Bruce Hornsby song, that's just the way it is, but don't you believe it? It's like I just could not believe what I was being fed and taught growing up, and what I was seeing around me. So I wanted to play the drums. I never wanted to do anything but play the drums. I lived, ate, and breathed the drums. And I was told I couldn't play the drums in the band because girls don't play the drums. Well, that was just like waving a red flag at me. Now, look, if I had been some kind of little docile, afraid, shy, girl, I would have never gotten that hammer and slugged at that ceiling. But I was like, I am going to play the drums, I want to be a drummer. Well, I kept begging the band director, and he goes, girls just don't play the drums, and your parents, said you can play anything you want to, but